and my dad tried, forcing me to hand over my house to my spoiled sister, exposing their schemes, unleashed a family scandal that destroyed their lives forever. I'm a 32-year-old guy, and honestly, I never thought I'd be posting this absolute mess of a situation online. Yet here I am, still shaking with frustration as I type. Let me give you some background about my life. For the last decade, I've worked as a veterinary technician at one of the busiest animal hospitals in our city. It's not a path to wealth. I make about $65,000 a year, but I genuinely love what I do. There's something amazing about helping sick animals recover, even if it means getting scratched, bitten, and covered in who knows what nearly every day. Plus, the way pet owners look at you when you help save their animal? That's worth more to me than any six-figure tech salary if you ask me. But honestly, saving up for a house on a vet tech's pay has been its own battle. Since I was 22, I've been living like a broke college kid just to make my dream come true. I shared a tiny apartment with 3 other guys, one of whom was almost definitely running some kind of illegal cheese import business out of his room. Don't even ask. I can still smell it. I drove an ancient Honda Civic that made noises cars just shouldn't make, and survived on the cheapest food you can imagine. If there was a deal on ramen or frozen burritos, you better believe I was stocking up. Meanwhile, my sister Sarah, who's 35, oh man, where do I even begin with Sarah? Imagine the most entitled Instagram influencer wannabe you can think of. Multiply that by 10. Now add 3 kids from 3 different baby daddies, and you're getting close. She's always working some new lifestyle brand, hopping into every pyramid scheme that crosses her path and somehow convincing our parents to fund her ideas. Her kids are 8, 5, and 2. They're cute, don't get me wrong, but Sarah basically uses them as props for her Instagram feed. She's always posting those perfectly staged pictures, everyone in matching designer outfits, with captions like, "Blessed Mama raising my tribe," all while dumping her kids on our parents so she can network at business meetings, which are really just cocktails with other MLM hustlers. The craziest part? She hasn't held a steady job since she quit working as a hostess at Applebee's back in high school, because, in her words, the uniform didn't fit her vibe. But somehow she always has the latest iPhone, a closet full of luxury handbags, and she jets off to business retreats in Cancun. How? 2 words. Our parents. Mostly my dad. Honestly, the way he treats Sarah versus how he treats me, you'd think we were from different families. When I needed new shoes for school, I'd get, "Money doesn't grow on trees, son." If Sarah needed a new MacBook because her old one was so last year, Dad's credit card would appear faster than you could say, "Daddy's princess." I tried to let it go over the years. I was determined to build my own life, stay focused on my goals. Sure, it sucked living with roommates into my late 20s while Sarah lounged in our parents' guest house rent-free. But I kept my eyes on the prize. Every extra dollar from overnight emergency shifts or picking up more hours went straight into my house fund. While Sarah was gambling on crypto schemes pitched by her latest boyfriend, I was reading everything about mortgages, taxes, and home repairs. After nearly 10 years of saving, working like a maniac, and basically living like a monk, I finally did it. I found a cozy 3-bedroom ranch-style house in a good neighborhood. It's nothing fancy and definitely needs some work. There's this ancient carpet in the bathroom that's probably older than I am, and the previous owner painted the kitchen neon orange. But it was within my budget, structurally solid, and most important, it was mine. The day I got the keys, I just sat on the living room floor and cried. Maybe that sounds pathetic, but after a lifetime of watching Sarah get everything handed to her while I busted my tail for every little thing, it felt like I'd finally proven that doing things the hard way, the honest way, could actually pay off. And of course, speaking of Sarah getting everything on a silver platter, this is where the real story begins. 5 years ago, our parents gave her a house. Not just any house, but a gorgeous 4-bedroom in the most upscale part of town. The kind of neighborhood where people have security signs in their yards and everyone drives a Tesla. That place was way nicer than my home, probably worth double. Want to guess how long it took her to completely ruin it? In less than a year, she managed to convince Dad it would be a smart investment move to sell the house and put the money into her latest business scheme, some mix of a juice cleanse startup and a music production company for her boyfriend at the time. Spoiler: he took the cash and vanished. Now she's back living in our parents' guest house, rent-free of course, while they pay for everything, from her kids' private school fees to her monthly spa visits. But I kept living my own life, slowly renovating my house, fixing it up, one project at a time. I ripped out that old bathroom carpet. Seriously. Whoever thought carpet belonged in a bathroom? Painted over the neon orange kitchen, and even set up a proper home office. Life was finally settling in. Then, last month, everything fell apart. It was a Tuesday, and I'd just finished what was probably the hardest shift of my career. I'd assisted on 3 emergency surgeries in a row, including one on a poor German Shepherd that had swallowed an entire kid's toy chest. Legos, Hot Wheels, you name it. By the time I made it home, I was running on nothing but caffeine and pure stubbornness. I collapsed on my old second-hand couch, still the comfiest thing I own, when my phone rang. It was Dad. Normally, Dad calling isn't a big deal, but something about his voice was off this time. Maybe he was trying too hard to sound casual, or maybe I was just wiped out. But I knew in my gut that something was wrong. "Hey, son. You home? Mind if I drop by for a bit? Need to talk to you about something." I should have trusted my instincts. 20 minutes later, I heard not just one, but 2 cars pull into my driveway. Looking out my window, I watched Dad step out of his Mercedes, the one he says is for the family but only Sarah ever drives, and then out of a brand new Range Rover, probably also funded by Dad, stepped Sarah in these ridiculous red-bottom Louboutins that must cost more than my mortgage payment. Honestly, I should have just locked the door. They walked in like they owned the place. Sarah instantly started criticizing everything. "Ugh, this furniture is so basic." "Yeah, because some of us actually buy our own things, Sarah. These walls need to be white for my aesthetic." "They're beige, but whatever." This would make a perfect room for Jaden's TikTok studio. Her 8-year-old doesn't need a TikTok studio. We all sat down in my living room. Sarah sprawled across my armchair like she was posing for a photo shoot, half the time recording stuff on her phone. Dad cleared his throat, did that awkward laugh he does, and then dropped the bomb that kicked off this nightmare. "So, son, your sister's been having some challenges lately." Sarah immediately interrupted, playing it up. "OMG, Dad, don't make it sound so tragic. I'm just pivoting my business model." She turned to me with this phony, sympathetic look. My meditation crystal business didn't exactly fit my authentic self. I was just thinking about the 20 grand Dad sunk into that business 3 months ago, but I bit my tongue. Dad kept going. "Well, anyway, we've been talking, and this house is too big for just one person. Your sister has 3 growing kids, and they need space to thrive. We think—" He paused for effect. "You should give Sarah your house." I honestly thought I was hallucinating from exhaustion. Maybe I'd fallen asleep at work and was dreaming. This up after too much coffee and the smell of dog surgery. "Excuse me, what?" I blurted. Sarah rolled her eyes so hard I'm amazed they didn't get stuck. "God, don't be so dramatic. It's not like you're even using all this space." She waved her phone around, still filming. "I need a proper space for my content creation. The lighting in the guest house totally ruins my engagement numbers." I looked at Dad, waiting for the punchline, but he just wore that same look he always does when Sarah wants something. That "just give it to her so we can have peace" face. "You can't be serious," I said. Dad leaned forward in his reasonable businessman tone. "We've thought this through. You're young, single, and dedicated to your work. You could easily find an apartment closer to the animal hospital. Sarah needs stability for her kids." "Stability?" I almost laughed. "Like the stability of the house you gave her that she sold for her ex's music career?" Sarah's head snapped up from her phone. That was different. Jackson's mixtape was going to be huge. How was I supposed to know he'd run? Off to Miami with that SoundCloud rapper? Dad threw up his hands in that calming gesture he thinks works. The past is the past. This is about family, about helping your sister get back on her feet. Back on her feet? I let out a laugh, but there wasn't anything funny about it. She's never actually been on her own 2 feet. You've just carried her through every terrible choice she's made. Sarah gasped, like I'd insulted her entire Instagram following. I am a boss babe, running multiple businesses. Pyramid schemes aren't businesses, Sarah. That's when Dad pulled out his ultimate card, the one he probably figured would settle everything. Son, if you're not willing to help your sister out here, well, you might want to rethink your place in the will. The room went dead quiet. Even Sarah stopped recording. And you know what? Right then, something inside me snapped. Years of watching Sarah get everything she wanted while I worked nonstop for every little thing. All those moments I kept my mouth shut just to keep peace. Suddenly it all bubbled up. I got up, walked to my office, ignoring Sarah's "OMG, so rude," and came back with a folder. I'd been keeping that folder ever since Sarah sold her house, because part of me always knew a day like this would come. You want to talk about the will, Dad? Let's actually talk about it. A quick backstory on the folder. The day Sarah sold her house, something clicked in me. Maybe it was years of watching things spiral if you didn't keep records. All those years working with sick animals taught me that a tiny detail left unchecked can become a disaster if you don't document everything. So I started collecting receipts, texts, even screenshots of Sarah's social media posts where she bragged about her investments. Maybe it was paranoid, but after 12-hour animal hospital shifts, you trust your instincts. I dropped the folder on the coffee table. Ironically, the same one Sarah called tragically suburban just minutes ago. The sound it made was actually pretty satisfying. Let's do some math, Dad, I said, pulling out the first paper. The house you gave Sarah, the one in Oakwood Heights, let's look at what it was worth. Sarah scoffed, finally setting down her phone. Oh my God, are you still bitter? That was like forever ago. I'm trying to manifest abundance here, and your negative energy is totally blocking my chakras. I ignored her and spoke to Dad. Property records say it was worth $875,000 when you handed it to her. Want to know how much she sold it for? $890,000. Now, where did all that money go? Dad started looking uncomfortable. Sarah suddenly got fascinated with her nails. I kept going, pulling out more documents. Let's see, $50,000 straight. Into Jackson's music career. He took the money and disappeared 2 weeks later. At least you got a face tattoo from that one, Sarah. Then, $200,000 into your crystal healing empire, which lasted 3 months before you announced crystals were so 2022, and let's not forget the $300,000 you put into that pyramid scheme for magnetic water or whatever. It was alkaline ionized wellness water, Sarah interrupted, like that made it any better. And that only failed because people weren't ready for that level of hydration consciousness. I kept pulling out page after page. The rest of the money? Designer bags, the Range Rover she never made payments on, and who knows what else. But here's where it gets interesting, Dad. I had a friend in real estate look up your current estate value. Dad's face went from uncomfortable to pale as a ghost. Sarah kept pretending to be interested in her manicure, but I could see her shoulders tightening. Your house, your investments, everything you've got left is worth less than what Sarah's house sold for. She's already had her inheritance. Actually, she's had more than her fair share. She just burned through it faster than anyone thought possible. The silence was so heavy you could almost feel it pressing down. Sarah's face was trying for that influencer smile, but her eye was twitching. Dad looked ready to faint. So go ahead, I said, settling back in my chair. Cut me out of the will. There's nothing left for me anyway. That's when Sarah exploded. This is so unfair, she shrieked, leaping out of her chair. You can't just throw numbers around like that. Money isn't everything. What about my children? What about their future? You mean the kids you use for Instagram sponsorships? I shot back. The ones you're trying to turn into TikTok stars before they can even read? At least I have children, she screamed. What do you have? A bunch of sick animals and this basic suburban nightmare. Dad finally managed to speak. Now, son, these numbers, they aren't the whole story. Your sister's businesses were investments in her future. I cut him off. No, Dad, they were just ways for you to keep bailing her out and avoiding any real responsibility. And now that you're out of things to give her, you want to take my house. The only thing I've ever managed to earn, completely on my own, with zero help from you. By then, Sarah was sobbing. But even her crying seemed fake, like she was trying to position her face for the best lighting. You don't get it. I need a proper space for my content. The guest house lighting is killing my engagement metrics. My followers expect a certain aesthetic. Your followers? I laughed. You mean the ones you bought? Because I have receipts for that too. Her jaw dropped. You wouldn't. I pulled out another stack of papers. 10,000 fake followers bought just last month. Wonder what your sponsors would think about that. Dad stood up, trying to regain control. That's enough. This is exactly why we're concerned about you. This isn't how family should treat each other. No, Dad. This isn't how family treats each other. Family doesn't try to steal each other's homes. Family doesn't enable one kid while screwing over the other. And family definitely doesn't threaten to cut someone out of a will that's already empty. Sarah's mascara was running now. So much for waterproof. That's what happens when you buy counterfeit makeup. She was still trying to film, sniffling and angling her face for the camera. My followers are going to hear about this. Just wait till I post about this toxic family drama. Post away, I said, pulling out one final document. But you might want to read this first. Remember that contract you signed with Dad when he gave you the house? The one that said you'd use the money responsibly? The one that technically makes you liable for fraud since you lied about your business investments? The phone slipped from her hand and hit the floor. I stood, gathering my papers. Now get out of my house, both of you, and if you ever try threatening me with inheritance again, these documents go straight to a lawyer. After I kicked them out that night, I honestly thought it would be over. Like, who would try anything after being exposed like that? But I'd underestimated just how entitled Sarah really was, and how far Dad would go to enable her. The next few days were quiet, except for Sarah's passive-aggressive Instagram stories about toxic family members and energy vampires. I'm pretty sure she meant me, LOL. She even posted this long, dramatic story about how the universe makes you struggle to prepare you for abundance or whatever. Meanwhile, she's at a spa day, that Dad clearly paid for, in yet another designer outfit. I kept working my usual shifts at the animal hospital, trying to settle back into normal life. I got a sweet case with a rescue pit bull who needed surgery. She's doing great now, by the way, totally thriving with her new family. Things seemed to be calming down. Then last Thursday happened. I was in the middle of a complicated cat dental procedure. By the way, cat teeth are way more complex than people think, when my phone started vibrating nonstop in my pocket. Normally, I never check my phone during work, but something felt off. During my break, I finally checked my messages. Holy hell. The first was from my next-door neighbor, Mike. Dude, there's a moving truck in your driveway. Then from my other neighbor, Karen, actually a super nice Karen, not the usual stereotype, there are people moving furniture into your house. Is everything okay? After that, a stream of increasingly frantic messages from both of them about how Sarah and Dad were literally moving stuff into my house. My hands shook so bad I almost dropped my phone as I immediately called Mike. Mike, what the hell is happening? Bro, your sister and Dad showed up about an hour ago with a U-Haul and some moving guys. They had a locksmith with them. Said something about you giving them the house. I thought it seemed weird, but didn't want to assume. I felt sick. I told my supervisor I had a family emergency, total understatement, and raced home. The whole drive, my mind was spinning. There's no way they were this insane, right? This had to be a misunderstanding. Nope. I pulled up to my house, and there it was, a giant U-Haul in the driveway. Sarah was directing confused movers while filming for Instagram, And Dad was talking to a locksmith actively changing my locks. The best part? Sarah's 3 kids were running wild in my front yard yelling, "We get to pick our rooms!" while she yelled at them for ruining her Instagram live. Her youngest, barely 2, was drawing all over my garage door with markers, while Sarah was too busy filming to care. I parked my car, blocking the U-Haul so there was no way it was leaving, and stormed up to my front door. Sarah saw me and actually looked annoyed. "Ugh, what are you doing here? You're ruining the surprise for my followers. I was going to do a whole home renovation series." I was literally shaking with rage at that point. "What am I doing here? This is my house." Dad tried to step in, acting all calm and businesslike, even though there was a locksmith literally committing a crime behind him. "Now, son, since you were being unreasonable, we decided to help you make the right choice. You can't just leave your sister and her children homeless." "Homeless? She's living in your guest house for free," I shot back. Sarah rolled her eyes, still filming. "That's not the point. The guest house doesn't have a home theater room. Where am I supposed to film my motivational Monday videos?" I took out my phone to call the cops, and that's when Sarah revealed her true self. She grabbed my arm, still filming with the other hand, and said in this weirdly calm, low voice, "Go ahead, call them. But remember, I have 3 kids. Who do you think they'll believe? The single guy who works with animals, or the poor single mom just trying to provide for her babies?" Dad nodded, acting like this made perfect sense. "Just think about how this will look, son. Just let your sister have the house. We'll help you find a nice apartment." I turned to the locksmith, who was looking seriously uncomfortable now. "Did you verify ownership before changing the locks?" He shifted awkwardly. They said it was a family property." "Show him the papers," Sarah yelled, her comm mask starting to crack. "Dad, show him how this house belongs to the family." Dad started digging through his briefcase, pulling out what were obviously some fake documents they probably printed at Kinko's. But I've got something better. I opened my phone and showed the locksmith my deed, mortgage records, and property tax bills, all in my name, all legally filed. The locksmith went pale. Sarah was still recording, but now she was screaming about toxic masculinity and how I was oppressing her dreams. Dad was babbling about family obligations and doing the right thing. And then I did what changed everything. I hit dial on my phone and said the words that wiped the fake Instagram smile right off Sarah's face. "Yes, police? I'd like to report a breaking and entering in progress." What happened next was like watching a slow-motion train wreck, only way more Instagrammable. Sarah instantly switched to full-on mommy influencer meltdown mode. "Oh my God, are you filming this?" she shrieked, actually angling herself for better lighting, even while having a breakdown. "This is literally abuse. I'm literally shaking, right now. My followers are not going to believe this toxic masculinity." Meanwhile, Dad was cycling through the 5 stages of grief faster than I thought possible. "Son, think about what you're doing," he said, trying to sound authoritative, but panic was clear in his voice. "This is family. We can work this out." The locksmith, poor guy, was stuffing his tools into his bag faster than I've ever seen. Can't say I blame him. This was probably not what he expected when he became a locksmith, if that's even a thing. And just when I thought it. Couldn't get any weirder. Sarah's oldest kid, Jaden, clearly watching way too much TikTok, whipped out an iPad, probably more expensive than my first car, and started narrating the whole thing. "What's up, guys? Welcome to my channel. Today we're watching my mom get a new house, but my uncle is being super sus right now. I wish I was making this up." The cop showed up what felt like an eternity later, but was probably just 10 minutes. 2 squad cars rolled up, and Sarah immediately went into full, helpless, single mother mode. If you've seen videos of fainting goats, it was kind of like that, only with designer bags and dramatic fake tears. "Officers," she wailed, perfectly finding her best camera angle while acting distraught. "Thank goodness you're here. My brother is trying to keep me and my babies homeless. Look at their little faces. But the thing about real cops? They're not Sarah's followers, and they're definitely not Dad's country club friends. They care about laws, not drama. "Ma'am, we need to see identification and proof of residence," said the first officer, completely unfazed by Sarah's performance. I pulled out my phone and calmly showed everything. Property deed, mortgage, statements, tax records, and my driver's license with my address. "Officers, these people are breaking into my house. They brought a locksmith and are changing my locks while I'm at work. They're literally moving their stuff in right now." Sarah tried to jump in about family property and some agreement, but the second officer cut her off. "Ma'am, do you have any legal documentation proving you have the right to be here?" Dad stepped forward, clutching his pile of obviously fake Kinko special documents. The officer glanced at the papers and, I kid you not, actually let out this sigh, like he was dealing with kindergarteners who did their homework in crayon. "Sir, these are not legal property documents. This looks like a PowerPoint presentation printed on nice paper." The shade in his voice? Brutal. I almost felt bad for Dad. Almost. The officers exchanged a look that said they were 100% done with this circus. "Ma'am, stop recording and step outside. This is a potential crime scene." "A crime scene?" Sarah's voice hit a note so shrill, I'm sure every dog in the neighborhood started howling. "This is a family issue. This is about my children." The officer turned to me. "Sir, do you want to press charges?" Sarah's face dropped faster than her last MLM scheme. Dad started sputtering about family, reputation, and something. About his golf club membership. The cops, to their credit, handled it like pros. They took statements from everyone, including the locksmith, who was more than happy to cooperate once he realized he'd nearly helped commit a felony. The moving guys, too, showed their work order, which Sarah had filled out claiming this was her investment property. Pretty sure that's fraud, but I'm not a lawyer. While one officer took statements, the other started supervising the removal of everything Sarah and Dad had moved in. You should have seen Sarah's face as the movers carried out her giant pink velvet couch. Meanwhile, Dad was scrambling, on the phone with his lawyer, who apparently wasn't answering, trying to calm Sarah and attempting to wrangle the kids, who were running wild like it was some kind of YouTube challenge. That's when Sarah's middle kid, Mason, dropped a bomb that changed everything. This 5-year-old looks up at the cop and goes, "Are we going to jail like when Mommy took stuff from the mall?" The officer's eyebrow shot up so fast it was almost comical. "Ma'am, is there something else we should know about?" Sarah's face was flipping through more expressions than her Instagram filters. "He's confused. He means when I had to return something, 'Mason, sweetie, Mommy told you not to talk about grown-up things.' But Mason, bless him, wouldn't. Stop. But you said the security guy was mean for not believing you were a famous influencer. Then Grandpa had to come pay the store." "Mason!" Sarah shrieked, dropping her phone for the first time since this whole thing started. "Go wait in the car." The cops exchanged another look. One officer stepped away, and I overheard him calling dispatch to run Sarah's record. Dad looked like he was about to pass out. While this was happening, the movers kept unloading stuff. One of them walked over, holding this massive vision board covered in pictures of my house, clearly screenshots from my old realtor listing, with Sarah's Empire scrawled in glitter pen across the top. Where do you want this?" Sarah tried to grab it. Back. "That's my manifestation board. I spent hours aligning the energy with the right crystals." The officer stepped in. "Ma'am, all unauthorized items must be removed from the property." "But I already sage-cleansed the space," Sarah wailed. Just then, another patrol car arrived. Turns out, Mason's little mall comment? Yeah, there was an outstanding warrant for Sarah. Apparently, being an influencer doesn't let you walk out of Nordstrom with unpaid merchandise, even if you plan to post about it later. The look on Sarah's face when they read her rights, priceless. She actually tried to ask if she could adjust her mugshot for better lighting. Dad finally snapped out of it, but not to help Sarah. Nope. He started frantically scooping up all the fake property documents he'd brought. The officer noticed. "Sir, I need to see those papers." Dad actually tried to stuff them into his pocket like a kid hiding a bad report card. Oh, these? Nothing, just family photos. Sir, the papers now. As the officer looked through them, his face got more and more serious. Turns out, forging property documents is kind of a big deal. Who knew? While one officer handled Sarah's warrant and another read through Dad's creative legal work, the locksmith nervously pulled me aside. Look, man, I swear I didn't know. They told me it was family property, showed me some papers. I should have checked better. Please, don't press charges against me. I'll make this right. The locksmith looked terrified, probably, worried about losing his license. And I made a decision right there that would end up being a game changer. Karma was finally coming around, and this time she brought all the receipts. Remember what I said about the locksmith? I told him I wouldn't press charges as long as he gave a full statement detailing how Dad and Sarah presented those fake documents. It turned out this was way bigger than any of us realized. Those weren't just crappy forgeries, but full-on fraud, complete with forged signatures and fake notary stamps. His statement opened a whole new investigation, and then karma really went in for the kill. Mason's little comment about Sarah shoplifting, that triggered an avalanche. Turns out our wannabe influencer had a whole scam running. She'd take sponsorship deals, order products with promo codes, then return everything for cash while still posting pre-recorded reviews for her followers with the stuff she'd already returned. She scammed over 30 companies this way. But Dad's mess was even bigger. During the fraud investigation, they discovered he'd been embezzling from his own company to bankroll Sarah's lifestyle. All those designer bags, the Range Rover, the kids' private school tuition, company money. He'd set up a fake consulting business in Sarah's name to cover the spending. The dominoes fell fast. Dad was fired and now faces criminal charges, plus the company is suing him for every last cent. Sarah is facing multiple fraud charges on top of the original shoplifting warrant. The only real silver lining in this chaos? The kids. Jaden's dad, Sarah's ex, stepped up and got custody of all three. He's married to a child psychologist now, living in a nice neighborhood, and the kids are in therapy, attending public school, the horror, but honestly seem happier than I've ever seen them. As for my house, it's still mine, obviously. The garage door's fixed, no more marker, art. Sarah's neon pink accent wall is gone, and I've turned a spare bedroom into a proper home office. The neighbors now joke that my house is the most secure in the neighborhood. Best part? Last week I got a letter from Sarah, writing from her mom's place in Florida, where she ran to escape the media. She begged me for help with legal fees, claiming she's changed and wants to rebuild the family. She even offered to promote my veterinary clinic on her Instagram, which has lost 80% of its followers since her arrest, by the way. I took a photo of her letter, wrote "No" in big red letters, and mailed it right back. Sarah's already posted about being in talks to play herself in the adaptation. I'm sure she's lying, but at this point I just sit back and laugh. My house is paid off, I love my job, and I never have to worry about finding crystals in my couch cushions again. Thanks for following this roller coaster, Reddit. Sometimes, the best family isn't the one you're born with, it's the one you choose.